Money talks. Legacy walks. Most people are taught how to earn money. Very few are taught how money actually works, how it moves through systems, how it's taxed, how it's protected, and how it's passed on. This channel is about understanding those systems, not guessing, not hoping, not following trends. Understanding. Retirement is not just saving, it's structure. Taxes are not just percentages, they're timing. Traditional qualified plans can create a future tax bottleneck, so we plan for tax diversification, not just tax deferral. Because wealth is not built in a moment, it's built through decisions that compound over time. There are no shortcuts here, no hype, no promises, no noise. We don't sell shortcuts. We explain systems, real outcomes, real understanding, so you can make informed decisions and build something that lasts. Welcome to Wealth Talks, Legacy Walks. We explain systems, real outcomes, real understanding, so you can make informed decisions and build something that lasts. Welcome to Wealth Talks, Legacy Walks.
Welcome to Wealth Talk, Legacy Walks. I'm Alex, alongside of our special guest today, Sean from Frontier Financial or Financial Frontier. We're looking at basically the past explosions in the Middle East to focus on money, okay? While the media sells you political tribalism, the structural foundations of the American wealth, which is really the petrodollar, is shifting right under our feet. A lot of people aren't paying attention to that. We're transitioning into since most people don't understand, since 2024, Saddam or Saudi Arabia didn't renew the petrodollar. So while the US has a standard, or the globe has a standard on buying oil through USD, that has not been renewed since 2024. So we've already been on the chopping block as holding the global positioning for utilizing our dollar bill. But there's no one strong country that can take over that dollar bill that can be reliable. So right now, with what's going on in the Straits of Hormuz, I believe Iran is also pushing global oil towards the Chinese yuan. One, because they're partners with China in what's going on. And two, to help destabilize the US positioning with the USD. Now, if you didn't know, and a friend of mine brought this up the other night, Japan has been buying up and bankrolling a lot of American debt. Recently, besides for China backing down off the USD, Japan has started backing up off of the USD debt. So our fiat system's in question right now. And so these are some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. Sean and I are going to go to show you the hard data and the exact geopolitical tactics being used against the US dollar. And most importantly, how to position your portfolio into tangible assets before the sorry for the pauses in my delivery, but I am dealing with the Filipino internet, unfortunately, and it's not always the greatest. But without further ado, I'm going to bring up my co-host tonight, which is Sean from the Financial Frontier. And we're going to go through some videos establishing what the petrodollar is and how we're moving through this situation where the media is just talking about the war. Some financial analysts are overhyping or fear mongering how the USD is going to break down when it comes to the petrodollar in the global increase on the cost of oil per barrel. But without further ado, I'm going to bring up Sean. Let's go.
Yeah, right when I get on, the internet come down. I shut down the internet. That's how real it is. As the great host, Lex said, Lex Luthor, let's get this started.
So I have a video that I'm going to bring up to share with everybody, and it sets the tone for what the petrodollar is, if you don't know. And we're going to move forward from there and get into the global effect of what's going on, not only with Iran, what's happened in the past, and then who's right now positioned to take over on this multi-tier idea that I have for, global dominance when it comes to currency. And how's that going to help hurt us? One, if we're the primary petrodollar and the global currency that everybody has to exchange their dollars for, don't you think the positioning is if they go to a multi-tier? See, this is going to be killing me tonight. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and pull up this first video and we're going to talk about it.
Structure to a debt-based incentive structure, where all of a sudden you have to outpace inflation at all costs at the bottom of that hierarchy. So you're taking on more debt. If in a world where dollars are depreciating, you're incentivized to take on debt and borrow. So it makes all the sense in the world that debt explodes. And I just wanted to circle back to one point here. The recycling of the U.S. treasuries is very interesting too, because this effectively puts other nations to work on behalf of the U.S., right? They send us goods and services. We send them dollars we can print ad infinitum, effectively.
That are no longer redeemable for gold.
I think before we talk about the double-edged sword, the super imperialism piece.
Yeah.
The U.S. was able to hold the most gold,
Yep.
but simultaneously be the biggest debtor. So they were like still versus the old form of imperialism where you just hold all the gold and people owe you.
Yeah.
They were able to accomplish both.
Yeah. Sort of to color that though. Right. So I would say that the true form of what is called super imperialism comes at the sort of in the 70s, let's say, because we started with the most gold in the world among all the other allied nations, 700 million ounces. We, I'll just give you the numbers on how that went. So by 49, we had 700 million ounces. By 68, we only had 300 million. broad welfare at home. And we started to finance our operations, not through a creditor position, not through sale of gold, but actually through debt. And I think that's the really important mechanism here, even before we get to the petrodollar, is that other nations were kind of forced into this because, again, if they rejected the dollar, which again had been designed at Bretton Woods, like as spoils of war, like we just had that privilege, right? We used it to design this ingenious system whereby, like, if other nations protested, they got hurt because if they tried to attack the dollar or start their own thing, the dollar would get weak, and then therefore American exports would get like really boards. So basically, after we cemented our power in the 70s through the help of the oil nations, like, and this really again gave us this big advantage against the Soviets.
I don't know if the video entered or ended. Hold on one second. I apologize for that. Let me go ahead and remove that. Sean, you are back up. How do you feel about that video? I mean, he's on point with how we weaponized the dollar once we became the head currency in charge globally. We kind of weaponized it against people.
Yeah, but I'm a patriot, so I don't really be caring. Like, I'm from America, I'm an American. And also, not only that, I'll just be realistic. Like, if you look at anybody else's history, like the UK or China or the Ming Dynasty or the Mongolian Empire, they all did the same thing. And so it's a human thing. It's not an American thing. We just are doing the best right now, currently, in our stage of power. Like, you check on my X, I just put up, like, the history of the nations with the most wealth. And we relatively came into power not too long, since the 1900s. Prior to that, it was a bunch of Asian empires in charge. So they did the same thing to other people in their territories. That's nothing new. That was my part.
Okay.
Yeah, so I be telling people, like, yeah, I know they, and especially when you talk about gold reserves, currently right now we have the largest. Like, we have 8,100 tons. That's more than the next two, which is Germany and Italy combined.
And then all you hear right now.
He gonna pause real second. He gonna come back with some ether, some vibranium. All right, he's back. Go ahead. All we hear is
China was posturing, and everybody in the media is overhyping the fact that China's out buying up the gold and this, that, and the other thing. But as you can see, and what you just demonstrated was that all of the hype that a lot of these financial institutions put out, the media, that is what they're doing. They're putting out a lot of hype. There's not a lot of basis behind what they're saying. And China is nowhere close to catching up to even how much gold the United States still holds. Even though we relinquished the gold standard a long time ago, we still held on to a lot of our gold reserves, which was smart. Because eventually you got to figure out your system's going to break down. And then when it does, who's going to be
holding the bag? That makes complete sense. And I'm going to wait until you come back to finish that. But of course, yeah, that's a perfect point.
So, who did you say were the next two gold standard holders, highest ones right now that you said?
Germany at 3,300 tons and Italy at 2,450 tons. China is at 6 at 2,200 plus tons.
And how much do we hold? 8,000?
8,100.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a significant difference.
Yeah, it's a big gap.
Over 6,000 tons?
But if you're asking, and what's funny about it, if you're asking about gold production, like China is the largest producer annually of gold, but I guess they sell it.
But you know what? Which makes sense because they're down in Africa right now doing what? Making bad deals when it comes to loans and
making good deals for the world, for the benefit of Africans.
They're down in Africa taking advantage of all the rare earth metals and deals that they're giving out for loans to help advance the African nations. But those are bad deal loans. Believe me, they're set up to default. They're set up so that they can just take the earth and the rare earth metals that are there. So yeah, I don't see why the financial institutions like the fearmonger. Do you understand? Why would they do that? Why would they go into the direction of, instead of encouraging the global dollar, it looks like they're praying for its downfall. And these are Americans that are doing this, a lot of them. But I see a lot of the global news community pushing this idea more so. And I just don't understand. Yeah, I just dropped out again. So
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they would choose to try to defame the current currency, because, like I said, I think it's more about they're still envious of the fact that we're one of the younger nations around, and we have not only global dominance when it comes to economic wise, military wise. We have outpaced most of these old time colonizers from way back when, since society has been around. We have outpaced them. And this small young country, well, we're not so small, but the US, if you really look at it, a lot of that old money, and
A lot of that old money is in my pocket. Nah, he's coming back.
yeah, so yeah, a lot of that old money is in a lot of people's pockets, but they only share the wealth a little bit. I got another channel and we're talking about that and where this wealth is coming from and who the people are that are holding on to it. We'll reserve that for that channel. But at the same time, yeah, there's a picture that people are painting in the media that aren't necessarily pointing in the right directions. A lot of misdirection going on, and unfortunately, some people are paying for it that don't need to be involved.
I always say that there's a lot of different business models, and somebody could be doing both or one or the other or something different. They can get creative, but most business models that most people actually do is they sell the news. And so that's their business, is selling news. When you go to the financial media, that's why I call my channel The Financial Frontier. We're going to be talking about the bottom line, not the headlines. Now, another organization is getting paid for headlines. That is their business model. So if it bleeds, it leads. Attention economics, negativity bias, framing, relevancy, all these things are basic principles of journalism. This is how you captivate an audience. So if I tell you something that is not relevant to you, meaning I don't talk about Americans, but I'm talking to an American demographic and I'm talking about Africans, and then at top of that, I'm talking about something positive, most people are not going to click. Most people are not going to view that. And so if it bleeds, it leads. A crash near your hometown is going to be more imperative for you than something that's happening in a place you can't even name or point out on the map. And so that's all that is. It's just human biases and human interests. That's actually the underlying fundamental building block of a lot of news that you see. So it's not that they're evil. It's not that they're attempting to mislead. That's their business model. Go to YouTube. All you see is thumbnails with the red going down. It's like every video has some negative connotation to it because that's what people draw to. And then they're actually, that's what they want to watch. That's what they're drawn to. So That's what I think it is most of the time. Some can be, of course, devious. Some can be not intentional. Some can be intentional. I don't differentiate. The same end result is the same, whether they mean to do it or don't mean to do it. It's inaccurate information because I'm trying to build wealth and not talk about nonsense.
Correct.
Because I don't get paid off that business model.
Yeah, and one of the things I think both of us identify with being prior Marines is
see, just when he was about to kick that knowledge, they had to hate on him. Hold on, he's coming back. He was about to kick that knowledge.
Once, and I said this before I blinked out, was, I think both of us have the same kind of mindset being Marines. We don't like being threatened. We don't respond to threats too well, and paramount to what's going on right now in the Straits of Hormuz, literally, Iran is blackmailing the U.S. and the global economy to say, look, the only way we're going to let these ships go through is this way, which is go and buy and sell your oil through the Chinese yuan. And if you don't, then we'll just blow up your ship. I don't know why the global economy is going along with this and allowing it, because other than the only driven reason is there's always been some kind of envy behind the U.S.
winning. He's going to come back. I know he was saying that. I know he was getting on that.
So the renewal on that contract was 50 years. June 9th, 2024, that contract was supposed to be renewed. Okay, so that was the end of a 50-year agreement with Saudi Arabia and the petrodollar as far as being a standard with the USD. Okay, now that contract never got renewed. Now everybody's volleying and kind of like trying to get in the door. Obviously, Iran cannot support the petrodollar. They're looking at nations that are more beneficial to them to push that. And China is one of those nations that can be pushed towards that. So I'm going to play this video to kind of give you positioning on that. And then we're going to talk about why China can't do it. And even Japan, who might have a lot of bankroll debt for the U.S., can't do it and don't want it either. So let me play this video real quick and we'll get into that. Oh, shit. I just pulled it out. Put it back. Let me get in here real quick.
Strait of Hormuz from their side over to Oman, which, if successful, would shatter the world economy. And that's enough of a threat to always make America or any other foreign power think twice. But Iran's capability to do that is realistically pretty limited. While the Iranian military is powerful, America's is a lot more powerful, and the presence of the Fifth Fleet so close by in Bahrain would almost guarantee American naval and air superiority almost immediately across the entire strait. Iran knows that their Navy and Air Force couldn't compete, though, so as a result, most of their focus over the past decade has been centered around building air defenses and missile batteries across the coast that could simply bombard any ships passing through. Iran all trading activity through it to a halt for who knows how long. Theoretically, Iran could probably shut the strait down, but doing so would almost certainly invoke a very sharp response from a coalition of countries who would be staunchly opposed to it, likely led by the United States and Saudi Arabia. That conflict wouldn't be very pretty, and it's
Well, he just said it. Once you do that, everybody's going to get involved. And guess what? Everybody is starting to get involved. They are calling a lot of attention to the Straits of Hormuz. Now, I don't know why all these news medias are kind of shouting at the rooftops, fear-mongering, and almost giddy at the fact of the potential USD
collapse, basically.
That is literally global blackmail. And you don't hear the media calling it out that way. You hear the media calling it out as that might be a good idea to do is, make it a multi-tier type of global economy now, because they don't want the USD to continue to hold on. We have too much power as it is already, between our GDP outpacing most countries altogether. Our military, we spend more on our military alone than most economies ever generate in a year annually. There's so much wealth coming out of the United States that they got to have some kind of control on us. And unfortunately, kind of Donald Trump is demonstrating the fact that if we say we're going to do it, you can't stop us. We don't even have to ask permission. Even though we have been in the past, we don't. And and I'm going to be quiet real quick and let you say something about what you just saw there with the Straits of Hormuz and everybody saying, oh, well, once they close that up, can't nobody stop them.
Yeah. I think most people's experience with the government has been mostly the DMV. And so I get when people say the government sucks. I understand that most people's experience with the government is probably their local townsmen. So when they think about the government, they say the government sucks at anything. But I'll tell you one thing the government, especially the United States government, does not suck at, and that's its military. That's their military. You just know the military bases that operate across the world, let alone the black ops sites that are undisclosed. The president don't even be knowing them. So at the end of the day, when it comes to this is what we do. The only thing that actually stops America for the most part is the American public going against the interests of the government and what they're trying to do downrange. That's mostly what stops us from doing a lot of things that other countries would have no problem of doing, right? The moment that they decide to take something, they're just going to take it, right? AKA Russia. So at the end of the day, I think most of the stuff right now, they're at least trying to, as you've seen, right, Iran media came out and said something about the stock market and Trump's attempting to make money and profit here. It's just discrediting. That's where he has to wage the war. He can't wage it in the battlefield because he'll get mollywopped. And so I think at the end of the day, while they actually, go back and forth about this is something that happened real life on the ground here in Thailand. When the war first started actually happening, Thai people were supporting Iran. They were like, this ain't right. Why is America doing this? Once the gas prices went up over here in Thailand, and they found out that the Iranian government was charging Thai ships a lot of money, Thai people started to say, well, that's why you're getting bombed. They switched sides just like that. So I think that they only can do this for so long until people want their damn oil. And they're going to stop caring about your sympathy. You're going to be the villain. And that's to Iran right there.
Right. Some of the infographics I've been pulling up are basically on, we pre-set up this situation. Unfortunately, I have to admit to it, looking at what the government's done going after Iran, backing Israel. What did we just do in January? We went into Venezuela, right?
Yeah, and I went to Venezuela also. Shorty
Right.
was bad. Okay, he's back.
I don't know what you just said, but anyway, so in January, we already had prefaced what was possibly going to be happening this month because we already took over Venezuela and have some really good deals going on with them with reinvigorating their oil processing. Now, the only other country that was dealing with Venezuela when it came to the processing of their thicker crude, which you got to use like a champagne or what they call a sweet oil crude. And that comes out of Texas, the Permian Basin, or the other person that was sending, or other country that was sending them oil was Iran. For us, Iran is not about their oil. We don't give a damn about their oil. It's a target of opportunity, but we're backing Israel in whatever their grandiose ideas of the Middle East is, while we're taking the advantage of the target of opportunity. And Trump was right. Cog Island is where they do a lot of their oil processing. We hit them the first day. We only dropped 2 bombs. Okay. And President Trump said, look, we're not going to mess up your processing. That's a lot of money. If it comes down to it, look, I don't give a damn what your country says. A lot of corporations put a lot of money into these politicians. They're only going to allow them to go so far before now you starting to mess with our business. Okay. Now, I've heard people on other shows say, hey, well, if Iran can't have it, they're just going to blow it up. Ain't no corporation in the world going to allow you just to blow up their shit. I don't care who you are. So that doesn't even make common sense that they're going to allow them all the years and processing it takes to get that oil from where it is out into the global economy just to blow it up to spite or be petty, that's never going to happen. So there is going to be a conflict on that Cog Island. And right now there's one MUSAC that's sitting there, two more coming. And I guarantee you when those two MUSACs come, Cog Island is done for. I don't care how many troops they got there. The Marine Corps, what they do, and that's what we do best, we will go in and secure that island. And all those little rigid boats that go in and do the intersecting that are are messing around with the oil tankers, they're gone too. So then here's the last bastion of hope for Iran is what? They're shooting missiles and drones that don't cost that much into the Straits. I heard recently that insurance companies aren't trying to insure tankers, especially from being bombed or sunk because of what's going on in the Straits of Hormuz. So there's situations that are going on to where insurance companies are trying to pull out. That can be fixed. The main thing is securing the area to where reliably, even with ship escorts in and out, those tankers can get in and out. That's why I gave a friend of mine, I actually laid down a bet, Sean, I don't know if you know, 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks of the Marine units that are there, that are going there, get there, this will all be resolved. The Straits will be back open. Maybe Iran might be resolved, but once Cog Island gets taken over, the traffic in the Straits of Hormuz. I'm not saying Iran is going to be done for, but I'm just saying as far as the security in and out of that strait will be good to go by the time we get done. What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really predict it. I would just say that, they lost already. So I don't know how anybody's going to say, even if America withdrew today, they took a L. Your leader's been deleted. A couple other dudes been deleted. So to try to cope strategy to say like, oh, it's been a failure. No, it's not really. I think people always like kind of think in their head what victory looks like. But if I stop you 20 steps before that, it's still a victory to me.
Right.
The purpose is the delay. It's not total destruction or total completion. So at the end of the day, I don't know when things will recover, when they will get out. Your guess is probably more accurate. And I would just kind of lean towards what you just said about it.
Right. And I'm just showing slides while you're talking to reinforce the level of crude reserves that are available. And Venezuela has the largest amount of barrels sitting there waiting to be processed that haven't been for years because of the fact of all the sanctions that were put in Venezuela. Now those sanctions are being lifted. Businesses are allowed to go in and help reinvigorate their oil processing of their crude so that they can become a lot more profitable in partnership with the United States. Okay. And that was the biggest thing, because even when we went into Venezuela, there was China already sitting there trying to get their teeth into them. And obviously Iran is shipping over their crude in order to help them process. So you already had two enemies in our back door. So there's reasons behind reasons on why you're doing things. There's certain levels to this, and on a global economy, as far as the scale of it, I would say Venezuela is poised to be the next Dubai. Once everything gets done and rolling, and if you're not buying land in Venezuela right now, I don't know why, because I think it's a poised area as far as the global economy is concerned on, the next big spot that could blow up when it comes to, valuations on land, property, and space. So many big companies are going down there and starting to get things going. Now, like I said, it's going to take a minute to get everything going. But once they do, what do we need the Middle East for? So in 2024, when they didn't renew that policy, who's closer to us beside for Venezuela? All that oil is over there, besides for what we process ourselves. That was the next best location that we could go to not affect us at all. So when you look at it on a bigger scale, I know Sean likes to say, when in doubt, zoom out. This is as zoomed out as you can get, brother. You can see it right here, clear as day. Who's producing the oil and where our best efforts are when it comes to controlling that area and controlling that region. You know, any thoughts on that process of thinking?
Yeah, no. When in doubt, zoom out. I think that's the best approach. I know that currently in the market, at least, people are worried about certain factors affecting them, especially like the stock market has been hit in many different ways. But I always see these as opportunities to invest. I don't necessarily see it as something that destroys the fundamental of the business unless it did, right? Unless I was invested in an oil company that was operating in Iran, I wouldn't see this as a net negative. I would see it as a positive if it was not that. And so one of the dope things about America is it's one of the largest oil exporters. So while Iran plays games, America sells to customers and clients because certain people are going to do business that did business with Iran to start to think it's a liability, it's a risk, right? It goes through these types of situations, whether it's their own fault or whether it's America's fault, it's still a risk for my nation. So when I'm looking to secure oil contracts, I'm looking for more stable regions that don't have so much conflict and issues. Period.
Right.
I don't care if, oh man, this happened to me and it ain't right. It don't matter. I need to do business. I need to get my people fed. When they're mad in the streets because they have to wait 2 hours to get gas, I don't have time to tell them, well, Iran is going through something because, you see what I'm saying? People want solutions. They don't want excuses.
I agree. This next one is to show you guys, and I don't know if you guys have short-term memory on why I believe China is not the next place where the global petrodollar is, and the perception on China's wealth is ill-conceived. And it's just like the United States. We just print dollars. They hide the truth. Everybody's got their problems at the end of the day. I'm going to show you this video, first minute of it, so you can kind of get an idea of what just happened recently in China.
Oh man, this is getting spicy. Come on, video, come back. They out here mobbing.
You guys remember that? Or did you forget already? Because nobody talks about it. That happened when they're, just like in 2008 for us, when their real estate market took a huge dump. Most Chinese people, when they go to retire, they buy property. They buy real estate. They save for their legacies. I don't care how bad they live, their children are going to live better than them. That's one thing they are definitely straight up about. Okay. So when they put their money in the bank, they want to see returns. They want to see their money grow. A lot of them started investing in a lot of properties. I think the name of the corporation that closed out and stole billions of dollars from Chinese investors and the government was Evergreen. Anybody remember that name? Evergreen Properties out.
Yep.
And that's why they have buildings that are actually half processed and built that are falling down around because they started cutting on quality of steel in order to cut corners. And matter of fact, they're in Thailand, they're in all these other places doing the same damn thing. They will bid on a building and start cutting the cost by giving you less than quality steel, less than the type of bricks and products that you need in order to have stable buildings. China's known for this.
Collapsed here in Thailand. I'm based off of that.
Yeah.
People died, bro.
known.
And it was a government building they were building, cutting corners. And since he's gone for now, it was so bad that after it happened and after they were cleaning up, somebody broke onto the site to steal the documentation away from the investigation so that they could hide the fraud. The actual person, the perpetrator, got caught. But it was a government building that they were doing before the Thai government that collapsed. And it was tall. Alex, it was high up in the sky. It wasn't nothing. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's not only in China. This is something that's known in the Asiatic region where they're like, is that Chinese built? Investors just try to stay away because they end up skeleton buildings.
Yeah, and that's what they are. And I think there's been several YouTubers that stayed in certain towns. They look beautiful, big ass buildings, big luscious areas, and they ran out of money to actually process the buildings. So half of them sit half empty. A lot of Chinese will buy properties. Like even here, I have people in this same community I am that just brought the building, but never moved in. They're sitting empty. And that's what they do a lot of times. They will buy the land and let the property sit empty. Won't invest any more on it, but that's for their future legacy. That's how they think. So you have a lot of these buildings that were being processed, half done by these real estate investors and developers and never follow through on finishing. Matter of fact, in this one development, one of the most famous things about Filipinos is you would think the amenities would be done first so that they could sell the property quicker. You know, the gym, the pool area, you know, all those things look really, really nice when you go into a new developing community so they can kind of like show off the potential of your property and the value behind it. They don't do that here. The community building is supposed to be like the clubhouse with the pool, sitting in grass, bro, in dirt. And that's what I saw with some of these YouTubers that went to some of these places where Chinese investors and Chinese builders and developers were. They would go into half built up communities. They would look beautiful, large locations, large accommodations, but they weren't done. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to their global economy perception of they perceived or they push off being wealthy, but it's in their financial institutions, and a lot of that has been taken. And that's why they closed the banks, because the thing was when Evergreen closed, they were like, oh shit, if our money's not safe in the real estate, our money's not safe in their banks. What happens if everybody goes and tries to grab their money out the banks in the United States? Those banks can't even support the amount of money that's needing to be drawn off. That's where money gets moved around. It's more digital than it is in paper. You actually want to print out every dollar you own. Most banks say we can't do it, or you're going to have to wait, sometimes days or weeks. You can't do it. So when you have a whole bunch of Chinese people trying to rush banks, say, give me all my money back, and they want it in hard currency, it cannot be done. And it also starts to destabilize what? The government, the city, the county, because they draw off of that money too. Remember, your money is put to work the minute it goes in that bank. So if you ain't putting it to work, they're going to find a way to put it to work and give you the smallest amount of interest for having the privilege of spending all your money. You got any comments on that one?
No, I just ditto. I think you drilled the point home.
So when people start throwing China in your face, talking about, oh, China's this, China's that, no. And we're going to go to the other one, which is Japan. And Japan is a viable thing. Like Japan has been bailing out the United States for a lot of years. Okay. But before we go there, I think I got one more video for China just to push push it to the utmost here. I don't know why I got this coming up. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I got a commercial I got to get to because I only pay for the other one through my other channel. Hold on.
Yeah, no worries.
Share screen. All right.
To talk about China's 3 red lines, right? And it's part of their policy to improve the financial health of the real estate sector. Would you be able to give a brief explanation?
There are these 3 red lines. The government developed this system to curb borrowing. First, to ensure a liability to asset ratio of less than 70%. Then the next line, a net gearing ratio of less than 100%. And the third line, cash to short-term debt ratio of at least 1. If you cross all 3 of these lines, which Evergrande does, this will restrict you from borrowing more money.
Besides being at the mercy of these policies, what else caused Evergrande to be where it is today?
A few years ago, China's most acquisitive companies were all forced to downsize following debt-fueled shopping sprees. Names like Dalian Wanda, Anbang, H&A, and Fosun. Evergrande has warned investors about its cash flow issues, and in September, even flagged depressed flat sales, and it was having trouble finding buyers for all of its assets. Evergrande recently stopped repaying investors and suppliers, halting building work at its housing projects. And we've also heard reports now that it has stopped paying employees and suppliers. We've seen protests, and they've showed up in their Shenzhen headquarters demanding payment on their wealth management products. Evergrande has recently hired debt restructuring company Houlihan Lokey, who has advised names like Lehman, Enron, and WorldCom.
There's some big names they throwing around, bro. You know, at the end of it, trying to recover or hide the fact that they went belly up. So, I didn't know if I took you down. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's all good.
To the wrong person. But those are some big names they throwing around, you know, and all into hiding what was going on. And I said Evergreen is Evergrande. But either way, as you can see, they're not poised to be that next global petrodollar. This is all blackmail between Iran because China is helping them to push some more, money towards China as a thank you for helping us type of thing, more so than anything else. So I hope you guys get that sometimes the money industry is not telling you 100% the truth because they're trying to hype something else up. They're trying to misdirect you on the actual honest to God truth on what's going on really within the global economy. This thing in Iran is not about oil. Let's be clear. This is an agenda driven by one country that we're just taking a target, and unfortunately, we're jeopardizing our sons and daughters with it, but it's a target of opportunity, yes. And unfortunately, other people are paying for it. I'm gonna prep another video, but go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. Again, I think it'd be naive for us to sit around, and at least me, to think that there's not going to be sacrifices to be number one. And at the end of the day, any other nation would do the same. They actually do the same. And I'm not mad at them for attempting to do the same and be number one. Like, why would somebody want to be number two? Just because most people are happy doing that doesn't mean most nations want to be in that position. So again, we have to do something. Our soldiers are there for a reason. And so they're going to go down range and then they're going to fight for our interests. And then that's just the end of it. That's how it always been. So I really don't look at it as a net negative. I look at it as a net positive, It has to come to heat, and this is where we are at. When I got my orders to went to Iran, I went. I never cried and complained afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people during peacetime situations, they were happy to be in the military. They did their time. They didn't think they ever had to worry about going back to war since Vietnam. And then, and you saw mass exodus. And that's what happens. When people see you not so brave when you know that you might have to catch a bullet. The ones that are now being indirectly put in harm's way, and I guarantee you there either will be or won't be a lot of renewals on those contracts after whatever they go through. I have one last video because I don't like to talk about situations without talking about some relevance of a solution. Some relevance of some positivity and some direction to push toward. So my idea is obviously, me, I'm more of a tangible guy, but there's still those guys out there that want to do the crypto thing. So I'm going to talk about the de-dollarization and looking at other things that might possibly go through this video. Hold on.
Just in huge volume, because that's to lubricate trillions of dollars of financial transactions and physical transactions every single day, and something in excess of 25-30 trillion dollars of annual merchandise trade. That's a lot. And there are really only four countries four currencies in the world that can even theoretically do that: the US dollar, the European euro, the Japanese yen, and the Chinese yuan. Okay, number one. Number two, access. You have to be able to get a hold of nearly unlimited volumes of that currency whenever you want to. Obviously, the dollar scratches that itch. The Japanese yen, not so much. The Japanese tried to go global back in the 1980s. It turns out their financial system couldn't handle it, and it contributed, was one of the many factors as to why they have had, on average, 0% growth since 1993, 1994, something like that. And so they have kind of closed up shop. Their currency is available. You can add it to the side, but it's never going to be a mainline exchange currency. Let's see. China is eliminated from that category as well. The number one concern that the Chinese have is for control, absolute, total, domineering, dictatorial control over their own internal financial sector. That means they don't want to see large cross-border flows, especially from China to the rest of the world. So every once in a while, the Chinese will do what they're doing now and talk up the yuan and talk up internationalization. And then as soon as it starts to happen, a flood of currency from the Chinese goes elsewhere, because the Chinese are the people who are the least confident in their own economic system. And then the Chinese government slams it shut, and we don't hear about it for a couple years again, like we are now. Okay, what's the big one? Trust. You have to trust that the currency is going to be worth something. You have to trust that the government's not going to intervene. And that means this is kind of a subset of trade. Now, with trade,
That's the biggest thing about any global currency is trust. Every global country has to believe and trust in that country will do the right thing with that currency on a general basis. And that's why we stood so long, is we're one of the most trustworthy, accessible currencies that are out there globally. Even some of the more stable countries that you might want to throw up there as an option, no, they can't support it at a level that we do. They just cannot.
you are a major trading country and a large percentage of your GDP is gotten from exports and imports, then you have a vested interest in what the value of your currency is every single day. The US is perfect for that because the US trade to GDP ratio is only about 15%. And about half of that is either energy or NAFTA, and everything else falls into that other like 6-7%. So the United States really doesn't care what happens to the value of the currency every day. The Chinese don't have a freely traded system, so they can micromanage what the value is every single day.
So while the Chinese look paper rich, basically, I've said this several times on several shows, China doesn't necessarily have a global production of any one thing. They replicate things, they reproduce things, they have processing plants that build stuff for other companies. They don't have a global product like that that's in such high demand that their GDP stays high. Their global revenue is off of producing stuff for other companies, not something they produce themselves. And a lot of those companies are American-owned companies, by the way.
There's also the issue of whether your money's going to be there the next day. Now, the United States maybe has taken a hit on this with the Russia sanctions and that it's weaponized the US dollar in a few ways, but compare that to, say, what goes on with monetization. Now, I know a lot of you folks out there who are like gold bugs are like, oh, the US monetizes like mad. And, there's something to be said for that. We do have a large money supply. It's probably bigger than it needs to be, but a couple things to keep in mind. It's been shrinking for the last year as all the stimulus efforts from the last 15 years because of COVID and the financial crisis and everything else have finally wound down. It's going in the right direction. And second, I compare it to everyone else. The Japanese, the Europeans, and especially the Chinese print currency in far greater volumes than the US does. So the US currency is the primary finance currency. It's the primary currency in everyone's foreign reserves. It's the primary trade currency. It's the primary store of value. The Chinese yuan is none of those things. In fact, 99% of the issued currency of the Chinese yuan is held within the Chinese system, but their money supply is bigger than the United States because they print currency so ridiculously. So if you want to use that as a reason to talk down the dollar, that's fine. Just make sure you apply the same criteria to everyone else, because the yen in the US, even though the Japanese economy is less than a third of the size of the US, it's about the same currency exchange, and the euro is bigger too. So the US runs the least bad ship, if that's the right way to look at it. And then finally, of course, there's the euro. The Europeans for a long time have been mooting the US dollar as a co-equal currency, if you will. The euro.
Of course, they're the oldest countries that were sitting there as colonizers. And like I said, we're one of the youngest countries that are controlling a global currency. And how dare we, as United States, who disassociated themselves from the Europeans at one point, all of a sudden be a global leader and dictating to them. Who are you? That's like your child coming back around and telling you, yo, this is what you're going to do. Or you're going to get a spanking.
In Euro should be right there with them. But they confiscated insured bank deposits back when they had their financial crisis in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And as a result, anyone who could move their money out of Europe did. So it's a regional currency, and that's not nothing, but it's no longer a serious contender for any sort of broad, dominant international role. There are a couple of other countries that have started to kind of join the shouting on this topic, but I don't take those seriously either. One of them is Bangladesh. Bangladesh has recently publicly.
I'm not going to have him break it all down because, I mean, obviously, you guys have to do, and, while everybody has a lot of information, I really think it's worthwhile people going out and doing their own research so they have their own knowledge base. Stop listening to all these knuckleheads that are out there being paid to find drama, to be entertaining. How long has this thing been going on? BRICS. Over 13 years. And they just printed one currency as a threatening thing of this could really happen. All of those countries, by the way, have some kind of sanctions or something going on with them in the US. So do they have an agenda behind why they would want to all unify and make their own currency and maybe destabilize the American dollar? Absolutely. Absolutely. You say follow the reason sometimes, follow the money sometimes, but also follow the reasoning behind why somebody wants to do something. What is the purpose? You know that old saying, if it's not broke, why fix it? Well, some people just want to be that person. It's nothing about it being broke. I saw the question. I am not answering you. And no, I'm not. So at the end of the day, like we were talking about, where is that file? Hold on, let me see all files. There's one file I love and I cannot find it. Oh man. Anyway, is it here? Let's just type in unnamed. You can talk if you want to, man. I gotta find this one thing, man.
Okay. Yeah, this is one of the things I want to highlight also that I don't think a lot of people understand. When they see these guys holding hands, like reading Rainbow or like the YMCA, they assume that BRICS, this currency, is going to take over. You still have to actually think about, what do the people want, right? What do the people trust in? And if you look at any of these countries, especially if we go to Brazil, if we go to South Africa and Russia, all these currencies, when you're actually living in a country, they will love to exchange a dollar for their local money. The dollar is so much more value and stable than their local currency. Let's just go down to the 2000s, right? In the 2000s, if we go to, let's say, South Africa, or excuse me, Brazil, it was 2 Brazilian dollars. We're just going to call it dollars. It's called real, but anyways, 2 Brazilian dollars, right? It was 1 US dollar. Now, 1 US dollar is 5 Brazilian dollars. So that's almost a 50% decrease. When we go down to South Africa, it's worse. In the 2000, it was almost like, let's just say 10 cents to the 1 USA dollar. Now it's at 17. 17, that's a 1,700 reduction against the USD. Let's go to Russia. In the 2000s, it was 25 to 1 US dollar. Now it's 1 US dollar to 80 Russian ruble. So the performance of all these currencies have decreased against the USD by extreme measures, more than 100%, 50% plus. That was the worst case scenario with Brazil. So at the end of the day, you think I'm going to sit up there and want to take my hard-earned money and put it in some goddamn bricks? A bunch of people whose dollar and currencies have been underperforming against the US dollar for over 25 years? And I want to put my money in that? The only way you're going to get the people to do that is by force. And they're going to look for opportunities to what? Get the US dollar. I never knew about this until I went to Brazil. I was chilling in Brazil, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it was like, it was the same thing. Let's just say, let me look at the time frame when I was there. So I was there around then. So it was like 2 Brazilian dollars to 1 USD, right? I didn't know this at the time, but people would come up to me and they'd be like, hey, you got $1? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yo, can I get it? I'm like, for what? They're like, the exchange rate is 2 to 1. So I'll give you 2 Brazilian dollars, yeah, for 1 US dollar. I was like, bro, you could just go to the exchange. He was like, nah, I just want some USD, man. You got it? So I said, okay. Gave him the dollar. He gave me 2. Fair price, right? Little did I know that there's a black market in all these countries where they could take that 1 US dollar and go get 10 Brazilian dollars off of it. 10. That's 3 times of what the exchange rate is. But people with wealth, dark money, are attempting to wash their money. They're attempting to get their money not in their local currency, exchange it into a valuable currency that holds value. So they'll trade 5, 10, 100 Brazilian dollars just for 1 USD in the black market. And what does that make? That makes all the local people do the same thing. So before any currency crisis in any country, you could go to Turkey, you could go to Brazil, you could go to South America. Those people say, don't give me Chinese yuan, don't give me Russian ruble, give me the US dollar. They have WhatsApp groups where the black market guys come to your house and they exchange the money and they give you USD and you hold that. And for the next year, your money is safe and secure. I think, Ronan, people just in the West don't understand how you could just look at your bank account, right? And you could have $100,000, but by next year, it really represents $25,000. How infuriated that makes you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They don't understand. And watch this. If you only took that $100,000 that year and converted it into US dollar, it would still not only be worth that money, but if you try to exchange it back to Turkish money, it'd be worth way more.
Right.
You missed the increase.
Right. They're looking at the long-term gains for buying it even at $10, 10 of their country's dollars to the one bill that they're getting from that foreigner that did the fair exchange for you.
But we just sit at Starbucks and complain about inflation and the Fed and all this other gains.
A lot of Americans don't have vested interest, not in their country, not into the value of its country. I don't think they have a lot of vested interest in knowing who they really are as Americans on a global scale. You are envied in so many different ways. Envied in so many different ways. And it's not even about skin color anymore. Because on a global scale, you're an American first. Don't give a fuck about your skin tone, your tone. Excuse my French, I'm not trying to cuss on this channel, but I'm just saying. They don't care about your skin tone. They care about what's in your back pocket. Greenbacks, American dollars. Okay? Because they hold value. Like Sean was saying. They hold the highest value in some cases. They have the highest meaning in some cases. You know, yeah, the euro has it and the yen has it, but the USD right now, because of the petrodollar and the value behind who the country is, it just holds a higher esteem, even if it's not by worth, on what's backing it. That trust, that, you know, that intangible thing that is America. You can't carbon copy us. We are originals. And I think it hurts certain countries to their soul that a young country like ours has overexceeded every expectation these older countries had on what we truly have. And now they want some of it back. Or they want to control it. Because when you can't have something, what do you try to do? You're trying to lock it down, cage it, and try to control it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So at the end of the day, you know, the last slide I'm going to throw up here are tangibles. When in doubt, when in investing, you always got to have something tangible. Because at the end of the day, if the world blows up tomorrow and there's not an electronic to prove that you got crypto dollars, the only thing people are going to start doing is fair exchange, this for that. Okay? So understand, there needs to be some precious metals in this. Son, and I hope you agree with me. There needs to be something that's fair exchange. And I used to tell my sons, look, if you don't get a college degree, that's fine. Find a trade. Find something that is fair exchange. I'm a prepper from way back. If the bomb went off tomorrow, it was no electronics, it wasn't no cars, you need to have a freaking skill. What can you do with your hands? What can you do with your mind? What can you do to bring civilization back to contribute to a community? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And me, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was saying, yeah, I agree with you because you're talking about an investment. And so whether it's a commodity, a stock, or real estate, I'll never be against it. So I'm not big on, you know, going against another asset like, nah, gold is stupid. It's outdated. That's stupid to say that. So at the end of the day, it's invested. So I'm all for it. So commodities, whether it's silver and gold, I think it's imperative that you go out there and you get yourself something, especially if you have nothing. Because as you said, when those times come, they're going to be very valuable assets, even more than what they are now.
You know, my brother had a huge silver dollar collection, real silver dollars. And when I was in high school, we had an investment, and this is back in the 80s. We had an investment little pocket in our school. And our teacher was able to get a hold of real silver bars. So I saved my money and I bought a silver bar. And eventually, when I went in the Marine Corps, I went ahead and sold it to my brother. You know, when my mom died, when my brother died, my mom took all the silver dollars and exchanged them for regular currency. Like they were quarters or silver dollars. They were just dollar bills. No, that's silver. The weight of it alone was more valuable than just the dollar that was printed on the coin. But she didn't realize that. Little things like that become exchangeable items when there's an emergency. You know how people say, oh, I got to have a go bag for this, that, and the other thing. What's in your go bag? Not something to protect yourself, medical supplies, maybe food and water to get you to whatever point that you guys are all supposed to rally at in order to get to the destination you're supposed to be at. But what also is in your go bag? Money, currency, something to trade. Because you might need to stop and get something on the way. And sometimes that dollar bill ain't going to be it, because when the country goes to hell in the handbasket, and all countries go to hell in the handbasket, if they actually do volley all these nuclear bombs around and start EMPing the hell out of every electronic device out there, I don't care how much wealth you got in crypto, it don't mean a thing if you can't access it. So then what do you have? What are you relying on? If it can't be done with your hands, can't be done with your brain, if you're not a contributing factor to your community, I don't give a damn how much wealth you got. Don't mean you're in charge. And you'll see this in a lot of different videos and movies and things where they like people try to say that they dictate power because of their positioning. Positioning in what? There is no society. Now it's you against the world, unless you have a community that you guys already have commonality in. I'm not just thinking about financial. I'm thinking about after financial vehicles and everything when it comes to the financial system has crashed. What do you got of value? Remember, I don't show shortcuts. I explain systems. And all systems eventually will fail. What do you got to fall back on if yours does? What's your backup to the backup? What do we say in the military? One is none, two is one. We always have to build in redundancies. You got to have a plan B, C, and D. What are your plans B's and C's?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one? If you don't, you better get one. Better get a few. Because depending on where you are, even if you're comfortable, plan B might not be accessible to you. You got a rally point, but you're over in another country. You can't rally there right now unless you know how to fly a plane or charter a boat. And good luck being at the pier at the time that people know the shit's going to hit the fan. They don't care whether you own it or not. They're taking it. You're getting jacked. How are you protecting yourself? You need to be a well-rounded individual altogether. It's not just about finances at the end of the day, even though we talk about it. You got to be able to survive to have a legacy. And it ain't always financial. Go ahead, Sean, man. Give me your closing remarks, man. What you feel about what's going on with the petrodollar, what's going on with Iran, you know, tangibles versus investments. Just go ahead and close it down for whatever you want to, from what we talked about.
Yeah, one of the things I was actually just reading on my X timeline is just Bill Ackman. Shout outs to Bill Ackman. I'd rather listen to people that are winning than losing. He says some of the highest quality businesses in the world are trading at extremely cheap prices. Ignore MSM, one of the most one-sided wars in history that will end well for the U.S. and the world. And we have the potential for a large piece of the dividend. And so one of the best times in long time to buy quality. Ignore the bears. That's what I always say. Like, most of the time I'm investing, I ignore the bears. Like, this is a great opportunity. I just bought Meta at like a 30% discount. I just bought a couple of other assets at a 30 to 20% discount because people think because there's a war in Iran that Google won't work no more. It's the most stupid things in the world. But fear drives opportunity.
Absolutely.
And my personal opinion about if it all crashes and said and done, you need food, medical supplies, and guns, because everything else is almost irrelevant because nobody has anything. So they're just going to jack you for it. They're not going to trade. They're not going to barter. It's just going to be New Jack Global. It's not New Jack City. It's New Jack World. So everybody is going to attempt to jack everybody. So if it's not that, and I have a chart I wish I could pull up because I want to show something. Oh, man. Let me just pull up this chart because this chart, let me just scroll through my line right here and find it. But this chart is basically showing you like the market and how long it's been consistent despite all the wars that we have been through. And it just shows you a consistency that the market continues to perform. And that goes for real estate, right? That goes for commodities. That goes for everything in the marketplace. So what I would tell somebody,
war dictates profit too. There's profit in war. It drives the economy.
For particular companies, yeah. I think a lot of companies that are military industrial complex like Raytheon and et cetera and Boeing have done well during this. But even just looking in the long term, then you got a company like Google starts to underperform because they don't think like, oh my gosh, well, this is war. It's in the military industrial complex. And then it's like, wait, so I'm going to get NVIDIA for cheap now. I'm going to get Microsoft for cheap now. Like, okay, let me bring up the sheet right here. Like, all right, I'll buy it for a 20% discount because somebody's scared. You're a grown man. Can you see it?
Yep.
It's coming.
Yeah. Can you zoom in on it or?
Yeah. Let me just up and away. So you can name all the wars you want to. We can go through this bit by bit. But you see the chart?
Yeah, there's very little drop when you zoom out and way more growth.
And way more growth. And this is working its way through World War II. So is this war greater than that? I don't think so, right? And so I think it's always good to have a positive mindset. I understand that temporarily people might be going through some things. But again, you have problems before the war. If you have problems with gas prices now, you had a financial issue prior to the war. Because I know that I teach people financial literacy. And also, I have no sympathy for you because I went into the military in 2005. I did 4 years. And when I was looking to get out, what happened? So after I was done serving in Iraq, after I was done saving up all the money and serving my country and going down range, I came out into a market that just finished a financial crisis.
Yeah, Jesus.
As a new young adult after serving the country in war. But I didn't take on the mind frame of, oh, poor it's me, I can't do nothing now. The whole market crashed. I wasn't even thinking about, I was thinking about my future still and how I was going to build upon it. I still had my 6 months reserve because I managed my money appropriately because I saw what happened to my mother because she was financially illiterate. So I learned from her losses and I did better. I didn't know how to invest. I had CDs. That's all I knew. Hello, Navy Fed? Yeah, can I get a CD 3%? That's all I knew. Save in CDs for almost 5 to 10 years. But hey, when something happened, I was prepared. If you're not prepared, you have issues that you need to fix. Go holler at Dave Ramsey. But from here, if you're ready and prepared, you can take advantage of the opportunity. Opportunity meets preparation. Be prepared at all times. If you're not, then you won't have no options. So shout outs to Vernon, shout outs to the Wealth Talks and Legacy Walks. I think that if we just keep building and giving you what you need, which is a support and optimism that I think we need, I think we can get far. It's too much pessimism. I already got paid, so I don't need to sell you pessimism in order to get paid. I don't need to say you handicapped, you broke and disgusted and you can't do it because you can't afford shit. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you it's possible because I was broke just like that too. Shout outs to RT. Shout outs to Alex. Shout outs to the whole channel.
Yeah, it's gonna take a second from calling me from my other
Yeah. It's gonna take a bit.
to using my real name in here. And that's why I use my real name. I ain't afraid to tell you I was a fiduciary. I did this for a living. I advise people like Sean and other older people that own businesses that were multimillionaires. And I got into their head and I understood what their direction in life was, what quality of life was, what their numbers were, if they had numbers. You know, and the whole idea behind this is understanding the system helps you gain the system. You got to understand how systems work. You take advantage of it and you use their weak points for information or for benefit. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to pull the trigger, not pull the trigger. Do what you feel is best for your legacy. And that's why we talk about Wealth Talks helps you walk in, or your legacy walks. Legacy meaning your children, your destiny, the things you're leaving behind. Because too many times, let's say this, people have worked themselves to the bone to where they never got to even spend or have access to their money. And their kids or their descendants threw all that money away because they didn't put it up right. They didn't put it in trust. They didn't allow for their assets to be protected. And through probate laws and everything else, most people lost everything they worked so hard for. They didn't get to take vacations for. They worked long and hard for your kids to benefit off of it. And the kids didn't know the right things to do with it. These conversations are to help you have conversations with your own children, help you explain what's going on with your children so that they have a better thing. First thing a child gets when he's 18 is he starts getting draft notices and credit card applications, especially if he's going to college. Why? The bank wants to linchpin him to a debt. and turn them into, instead of being free, a slave. You guys got to stop that. You got to stop allowing it to happen to your legacies. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it. I don't want to try to drive out longer than hour-long conversations unless we're doing something big and it takes that long. But I appreciate everybody from coming in. If you haven't already, if you're in my old room, Ronan, please hit the link that goes and brings you over to Wealth Talks Legacy Walks and subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell notification. If you haven't already subscribed to Sean's channel, The Financial Frontier, I always want to flip that. I'm dyslexic. The Financial Frontier, I want to say Frontier Financial, like it's Star Trek or something. But yeah, the Financial Frontier, please go and click on his link, subscribe to his channel. A lot of wealth of information. And like I want to bring people up here that have done it, you know, and I just happen to be associated with a lot of people that have done it, you know, from people that are on my own team with, you know, Fearless, yourself, and other people that I talk to. These are men that have gone out and fought the hard fight, and they're living or existing in their wins. They didn't take their L's and lay down and roll over. I say all the time, even with me having PTSD, I've lived 12 lifetimes. I've had to reinvent myself as
20.
time has changed. You get what I'm saying? I have left money. I ran an agency, almost 3,000 agents. You know, I didn't give a fuck about the money at some point.
Before AI agents, real human agents.
AI agents, yeah. I had to manage all those personalities with my own personality issues. You get what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, please just go and hit the button, subscribe, get the information you need, use it however you want. You know, this is information that's free. Now, if you start bugging me for my time, yeah, I do have consultations, but it ain't going to be in a way that you think. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm just going to break down what you might need to go look for and push you in the right direction. But other than that, we're going to go ahead and push the button and end it. Thank you for dedicating your time on a Sunday night and listening to us. It's Monday morning over here on our side of the planet, but it's Sunday night for y'all. So you could have been anywhere, but you were here. Hit the like button, subscribe. And by the way, if you're on the replay crew, leave a comment in the comment section, please. Really appreciate it. And let us know what direction or what conversations you'd like to hear me or other people, because I'll go out and get other people to come on the panel as well and have those type of conversations. I think I'm already going to invite a brother that works with blockchains. Even if I'm not a crypto guy, I can't despise the fact that there are guys actually out there making money in it, you know, and help actually construct the whole situation. So I'm going to bring T-Mac in. He's in the blockchains and other things. So this is going to be a widely versatile group of individuals that come on and give you background information so you understand the systems and you can competently pick whatever systems or multiple systems through diversity that you want to use. Other than that, I'm hitting the button. Good night, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Peace.